Hey guys, this is Lauren from Writer Reader Debater. I am here to do my quarterly wrap-up. This is the second quarterly wrap-up, and it will cover April, May, and June. And I think I read about 15 books. I'm going to be doing it a little differently from my last wrap-up. Hopefully this whole video will upload instead of just part of it, but I am going to reading the books off of my computer and telling you ratings and synopsises instead of getting all of the books out and then showing you to them physically. And then hopefully I'll be able to insert a picture of the cover like up by my head somewhere if I can figure out how to do that, or just insert it. You guys know I'm not very technologically advanced. That's just me. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first book I read in April, I finished on April 5th, and that is The Arithmetist by Brandon Sanderson. I gave this book 5 stars. I loved it. I loved it just as much as I expected to love a Brandon Sanderson book. It was very creative and very well written, and Goodreads says that it's the first in a series, but no other books have come out yet, so I'm not sure if Brandon Sanderson has kind of put the project aside for a while, or if he's kind of abandoned it. Now, this book is about a boy named Joel who wants to become a arithmetist. Now, arithmetists are people who can make chalk drawings come to life, but only certain chalk drawings. So like they duel kind of, which is a cool concept. So they draw circles, which are like defensive circles, and then they draw lines, and they can shoot those lines at their opponent, which allows them to break through their defenses, etc. And then the last one, this is my favorite part of the whole process, and that is the chalklings. Chalklings are little pictures that you draw that attack your opponent. And so Joel really wants to be a arithmetist, but he's not, because he didn't get chosen on his chosen day because he didn't make it. So this is just about his adventure at school, and there's some mysterious things happening. Students are disappearing, and this is a big problem because this is supposed to be a very secure school, and students are disappearing. And so Joel, and he makes friends with this other arithmetist who's horrible at drawing circles and lines, but can draw one heck of a chalkling. She draws the best chalklings of anyone there. And I love their relationship. There's one part where they go out for ice cream in town, and Joel is really poor, but this girl whose name I can't remember is really rich. And so she's like, oh, I'll buy us ice cream. And Joel's like, no, you can't buy us ice cream. I'm the man. I'm supposed to buy us ice cream. And so she hands him her money and says, okay, there, now you can buy us ice cream. And that just part just made me laugh because it's really relatable. And I don't know, it was really funny. And there were other parts in there that I just absolutely loved, and the ending was fantastic. I can definitely see where there is room for a second book, but I also can see where this book could end and then be the last one. I really hope it's not, because I want more of the arithmetist world and more of Joel and his world and his story. On April 16th, I finished Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I gave this book 5 stars. I love this book. This one is more of a classic, and I did read it for school, but I've been wanting to read it for a super long time. This is essentially about a world, our world in the future, where firefighters don't fight fires, they set fires. And more specifically, they set fires to books. That's their job, is they burn books. And it's really kind of scary, honestly. I read it and was like, oh my gosh, there's so many parallels to our world and to what could happen, and it's terrifying. And if you like books, if you are a booktuber, if you like to read books, which I'm assuming that's why you're watching this video, then you should read this book. It is so good, and it's so sobering. It's just about this one firefighter who realizes that what is happening is not right. And he has this conversation with an old man who is like a librarian, or he's kind of like a librarian, but he hides a lot of books and he loves books. But they have this conversation about the importance of books, and that chapter was just like, it was like so accurate, because that's what I feel when I think of books. So yeah, and then if you also have any friends who aren't sure about the importance of books, have them read that book, because it really stresses the importance of books. So again, I gave Fahrenheit 451 5 stars. Alright, on April 19th, I finished Hawksmaid, The Untold Story of Robin Hood by Katherine Langsky. This book is about a girl who will soon become Maiden Marian and her friend who will become Robin Hood. and it's just their story before they're actually like a thing, although there is, and it also tells the beginning of Robin Hood as a figurehead and Maiden Marian and that kind of relationship. But in this book, she is a falconer, and she's really good with falconry. And you guys know me, I love anything Robin Hood, and I gave this book 3 stars, mainly because it got a little weird, and it is for younger readers, but it's not very well written. It's just, I really like the idea, and I love anything Robin Hood, but it just wasn't very well executed. It's really interesting to explore that. There are some historical facts that they didn't quite get right, and so that kind of bugged me a little bit, and then they weren't incredibly true to the original tale. Although there's one thing that I wasn't sure about. Guy of Gisborne is as old as Robin Hood, right? Or am I just thinking that because of the BBC Robin Hood? Oh, is that who I'm thinking of? Was bugging me? But anyway, yeah, it was Guy. So Guy comes in as a young adult right at the beginning of the book and kills Maiden Marian's mother. So by the time Robin Hood is older and Robin Hood is actually Robin Hood, Guy of Gisborne is like sheriff age, like really, really old. So I don't know, that kind of bugged me, but I'm not actually sure if that's accurate, like if the original tales had the sheriff's like assistant Guy be older than Robin Hood or the same age. I've always been under the impression that he was the same age, but that could just be because of the BBC Robin Hood. So yeah, anyway. And then on April 20th, I finished Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. I gave this book 4 stars. It was very well written, very well deserved hype. I'll tell you too much about it because everyone kind of knows what it is and what happens and everything, but I really, really enjoyed it. The writing was really unique. Throughout the book, she would write sentences because the main character was essentially writing this in a journal type thing. So she would write sentences and then cross it out and then say say something else. And I thought that was a really unique way, and a really unique way to show conflict within the main character. So that was really interesting. But at the end, it gets kind of superhero because they find this like underground thing where there are rebels, and she puts on like a stretchy spandex suit. And I just kept thinking, superheroes, this isn't going the direction I thought it was going to go. This is kind of weird. Which is a part of the reason why it only got 4 stars. I just thought that was kind of weird. And it wasn't like bad weird, it was just weird. And I was like,
are the rest of the books going to be like superhero? Because that's the vibe I'm getting right now, is superhero. That's what that left me with.
Also, the guy that everybody's obsessed with, Warner, how? What? Like, guys, really? Because he is weird. He's creepo. He's crazy. Maybe it's just because I haven't read the rest of the books, but I can't see myself liking him in the near future. He was just bleh. The next book I finished on April 22nd, and that is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I'm only just now reading this book in April, and I loved it. It was so good. I gave it 4 stars. I don't normally read contemporary cancer stories or even fantasy cancer stories because I don't think those exist. But the writing was so beautiful. Like, this is not a type of story I'd be interested in, minus the fact that the writing was just so beautiful. John Green has a very, very well-developed vocabulary, but it's not too much. Like, he wasn't just trying to use big vocabulary because he wanted to sound smart. There's a purpose for every single word that is there, whether it be a simple or a complex word. I really enjoyed this. Gus is one of my favorite characters. I cried solidly through the last 5 chapters. Like not even, cried, like sobbed really, really hard. And I got to that part where Hazel and Isaac playing the video game, and that's supposed to be like comic relief, and I tried to laugh, but I was sobbing so hard that it sounded like a dying strangled cat. Books normally don't make me cry like that, but this one did, and I'm not really sure why, but I loved it. It was very impactful. Alright, and then on April 26th, I finished All the Shah's Men, An American Coup and the Root of Middle Eastern Terror by Stephen Kinzer. I gave this book 4 stars. Now, if you can't tell, this book is a non-fiction. That's right, I read some non-fiction, and yes, I am including this in this video because it is a book I read. This book was fascinating. I actually bought it because I was writing a paper on the 1953 coup. And for those of you who don't know, The 1953 coup was when the United States and Britain overthrew democratically elected Prime Minister of Iran, Mohammad Mossadegh. Really went into some really great depth and detail. It got a little confusing, the timeline. Maybe I'm just not as into nonfiction as I want to be, but the timeline was a little confusing. He would tell about like Iran history, and then he'd get up to a certain point and then he'd stop, and then he'd go back and explain something else that happened like 20 years before that he didn't mention before, but he wanted to highlight the event. It was just, at points it was confusing. I wasn't sure what date I was on, and I prefer my nonfiction books to go chronologically to an extent, because otherwise I get kind of confused over what date I'm on, and that's kind of annoying. Let's go ahead and move on to the next book. Now on April 29th, I finished Sphinx Princess by Esther Frasier. Sorry, I just butchered your last name. But I actually am really enjoying these series by her. She writes duologies that redo myths and histories. This one follows Nefertiti, and she, kind of before she was the queen of Egypt. And I give this book 4 stars. The writing was fantastic, the storyline was intriguing and interesting, and I really enjoyed it. The next book I finished on May 4th, and that is If I Stay by Gail Forman. I gave this book 2 stars. You know my thoughts on it. I'll post my review down in the links, but I was disappointed with this book, to say the least. The next book I finished May 24th, and that is Torrent by Lisa T. Bergren, book 3 in the River of Time series. For those of you who don't know, I'm kind of obsessed with Lisa T. Bergren. She is amazing. She's a wonderful person, and her writing is just beautiful, and her storylines are like, they're great. I won't tell you too much about this one because I don't want to spoil the whole series. The series is about these 2 sisters who get transported back in time to medieval Italy. So it's super interesting, and of course there's a lot of fighting and a lot of action, but there is also quite a bit of romance within these books. It's super sweet. I love these books. I gave Torrent 4 stars. The next book I finished May 28th, and that is Wolf Speaker by Tamora Pierce. Now, I love Tamora Pierce. This is a great series. This is a great book. This is book 2 in the Immortal series. I gave it 5 stars. Because it's that awesome. The Immortals is about this girl who has wild magic, and wild magic is a more natural, more raw form of actual magic, and essentially she can talk to animals, and she can talk to animals, and she has some other like magic, and she can heal stuff and everything. I really enjoy it, and it just kind of follows her adventures, and I would recommend reading the Lana series, what is it called? Something Lioness. Yes, anyway, I would recommend reading the all of Tamora Pierce's book chronologically, because they're just a lot more special and cooler when you read them chronologically. The next book I finished May 30th, and that is Cards on the Table by Agatha Christie. This is a mystery novel about this guy who gets murdered, and they have to solve the mystery. It's kind of obvious, but in this there are 4 suspects, and all 4 of them could have done it. It's beautiful. I love Agatha Christie. I'm going to collect all of her books, and I just absolutely love it. And just so you guys know, the battery is almost out, so if I suddenly cut off and then come back with a different lighting and possibly a different outfit, it is because I had to charge my battery and go do chores. So yeah. Anyway, I gave Cards on the Table 4 stars. The writing was beautiful. The vocabulary was slightly above my head, but I learned a lot of vocabulary, which again I love. If you haven't read anything of Agatha Christie, she's considered like the queen of mystery. Read some, because it is beautiful. I'm currently reading The Murder at the Vicarage, which is fascinating because the entire town has a motive for killing this dude. So the next book I read on May 31st, and that is Cross My Heart, Hope to Spy by Ali Carter. This is the second book in the Gallagher Girl Academy series, and this is essentially a book about a girl who attends the Gallagher Girl Academy, and she is a spy, but there's a twist in this one because some boys come to town and they attend school with them. I really liked this sequel. It was really good. It carried on with some of the last conflicts, but it didn't entirely, but it was a new story, so technically you could read it by itself, Wouldn't recommend it because you will be a little confused because they refer to the first story. But I thought it stood on its own, and as part of a series, I gave this book 4 stars. And the next book I finished June 3rd, and that is The Eye of King, book 1 in the Last Descendant trilogy by Catherine Banner. Now this book is about a boy who finds a book, and this book kind of starts to write a story in it. Now, he lives in this world I can't remember the name of, but it's essentially a parallel world to England, and they believe England is like a fantasy and a myth. This is a very, very good book. If you don't like internal conflict, it's not really for you because the last half of the book is mainly internal conflict. I thought that particular part carried on a little bit too much. I know this really tragic event happens when his brother dies, but at the same time, it's like, I understand why you would feel the way you would feel. I would probably feel the same way. But I feel like you have one emotion through half of the book, and that kind of bugged me. That's part of the reason I only gave it 3 stars. I feel also like there wasn't much plot. There was kind of hint at plot, but it wasn't a structured plot. And that kind of bugged me because it meant that it wasn't as powerful. It didn't really leave room for 2 other books. I feel if I know where she meant to go. I know where she was trying to go, which means that I understand how there could be a second and a third book. But if I didn't understand that, like if I was a newer reader, I wouldn't necessarily understand. I enjoyed the book, but at the same time it was kind of like, yeah, 3 stars. The next book I finished on June 12th, and that is The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. I freaking loved this book. It was so good. No joke, this is like one of my new favorite books. It is so amazing. I loved it. This book is essentially about a girl whose name I have forgotten. I'm not good with character names, in case you guys haven't noticed, but it's about this girl who is in this prison camp, and essentially what had happened is that all of the kids started getting this disease that only kids got. And then the people who were lucky enough to survive inherited these superpowers and were thrown in labor camps. It's kind of intense, and
each superpower is categorized into colors.
So for example, the main character is an orange, and she has the ability to control / see into people's minds. And then there's also green, which I'm not entirely sure what that does. Yellow controls electricity. Blue can manipulate objects with their minds. I personally would like to be a blue. This book was... Alright, so I'm back. Sorry, I had to do some chores and charge the battery, and I'm wearing a new shirt. Was I? Oh yes, I was ranting about The Darkest Minds because that book is awesome, but I think I have spent enough time on that. Alright, the next book I finished on June 20th, and that is The Last Sentence by S.E. Grove. This is a new release, and I got it a couple days before it came out because I pre-ordered it and Barnes & Noble sent it to me early, which is really nice. And let me tell you, this is a great book. I gave it 4 stars, and this book is about a girl named Sophie, and she and her uncle Shadrach are going to find her missing parents, who went on an expedition when she was really young to save one of their friends and never came back. And so at the very beginning of the book, Shadrach is helping Sophie learn all of these different maps. So there's like glass maps which show people, and then there are clay maps and all these different kinds of maps and cloth maps, and it's really, really unique. But what sold me on this book when I first heard about it, I believe it was on Cassidy Von Shay's channel. It might have been Reagan from Peruse Project. But essentially, all of the continents, and even sometimes bits and pieces of continents, are in different time periods. So something happened and it was called the Great Disruption, and everything split into different time periods. Down along the east coast of the United States went back to colonial times. There are various other places, some are in the future, some are in the past, and it's really interesting. So maps are really important because they're all different regions, they're all different time periods, and so people need to know how to get around. Maps are pretty important in our time too. But as Shadrach is teaching Sophie all of these wonderful things about maps, he's kidnapped by some people. And then Sophie goes to try and save him with this boy named Theo, who's from the Badlands. And can I just say that this adventure that they go on is really cool. You kind of think that the book's going to be about one thing, about finding her parents, and it turns out that it's actually going to be about finding Shadrach. I really, really, really enjoyed this book, and it ended on a cliffhanger, so I really want to read the second one. My only complaint is that there were a couple times where it was just a little bit slow, not unpleasantly so. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm trying so hard to get through it. It was just, you know, slow. Just one of those books where the pace is slower, and so you kind of have to read it at a slower pace. It's a great adventure novel. It's very, very unique. I love all of the characters. Blanca, who is the bad girl technically, she is such a well-rounded villain. Like, seriously, she's a well-rounded villain, and I kind of like Sophie. She's not my favorite character, but I do like her, which is important because she's the main character. I love Theo. He's so cool. And there's all these things, and oh, it is so unique. Please, please, please read this. The pace is a little slow, so it will take you a little bit longer to get through, but it's totally worth it. It's so good. And this is Essie Grove's debut novel, so I am so excited to see how her writing grows as she kind of learns more about the craft. And I'm super excited. She has a lot of potential, and her ideas are brilliant. So again, 4 stars to The Glass Sentence. On June 25th, I finished The Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, and I gave it 4 stars. This book was really intense. It was kind of it was a perfect book to read after The Glass Sentence, because The Glass Sentence was like adventure, but it was clean adventure, and it wasn't as suspenseful, although there were some suspenseful parts. And then to jump into The Throne of Glass was just the perfect thing to read after The Glass Sentence. And this book is about a girl named Selena, and she is an assassin, and she was betrayed and put away in a salt mine, and she worked in a prison camp. And then the prince comes to take her as his champion, and his father is trying to find someone to be the king's champion. And so each of the noblemen of the court gets to pick a person to compete, and then whoever wins, his champion. Essentially his assassin. They do his bidding, and she is promised freedom within 4 years, or after 4 years of service. So it isn't just, you know, she's fighting for the king, who she actually really hates and who is the reason she's in this camp, but she is fighting for her freedom. And what I didn't expect from this book is that there is a significant amount of mystery, and it's not just about the games, which I really enjoyed. And there is this kind of like love triangle type thing. I really enjoyed it. It was good, and I cannot wait for the next one. Okay, on June 26th, I finished the favorite short stories of W. Maugham by, obviously, W. Somerset Maugham. I don't know. It was that book that I showed you in my last book haul, the orange one with the cool ornatedness from the 1930s. I gave this book 3 stars. I did not read the entire book, but I read quite a few short stories, and they are very well written, but I don't know how much I loved this story. I do like classic books, as you'll see with my currently reading. I love classic books, but the problem is that while it was written well, it just didn't hold my attention as much as I wanted it to. So yeah, I only gave it 3 stars. I liked it, but it wasn't amazing. The last book I read, I finished on June 28th, just a couple days ago, and that is Nobody's Prize, Book 2 in the Nobody's Princess duology by Esther M. Frischner. Again, sorry for butchering your name, I just don't know how to say it. I give this book 4 stars, same as Sphinx Princess, which I talked about earlier in my video. This is a continuation of the story of Helena of Troy before she was Helena of Troy. And in this book, she sneaks away, pretends to be a boy, and goes to find her brothers who are with Jason, who is hunting for the Golden Fleece. So that's kind of the storyline that it follows. I really enjoyed this book a lot. It was really good. It was really good. I really have nothing else to say about that book. I mean, it was good. I love mythology. So if you're into mythology, definitely read any of these books by Esther Fraser, because what she does is she takes mythology and history and combines them, put it together, and wrote essentially a history, fantasy, mythology of her own that stayed true to the original one, but at the same time put a fresh spin on it and added some facts that we didn't know, answered some questions that we didn't know. Those are the books that I read in this last quarter, these last 3 months. And yes, okay, so now what I am currently reading. I'm currently reading 3 books. The first book is The Murder at the Vicarage by Agatha Christie. I am currently about 50 pages in. I'm really enjoying it. It's really good. It's Agatha Christie. I have a feeling there's not going to be a single one that I am not enjoying. I am also reading The Count of Monte Cristo, which, for those of you who don't know, is over 1,000 pages long. It normally goes right here on my bookshelf, which is why there's this big gap there. So I'm reading that. I am loving it. Like, this is probably going to be my new all-time favorite classic. It is so good. And because I already knew the story, because I already know the story, I can really take my time and enjoy the writing without having to figure out what is going on. Because, you know, sometimes with classics, especially with the bigger ones, sometimes it's harder to figure out like who's speaking. There are a couple times where I was a little confused, but because I knew the story, I knew generally who was saying what, and that's helping a lot. And it's so good. I highly recommend it. And then the last book I am reading is The Rightful King by, oh gosh, I don't remember who it's by. Uno momento, por favor. I'm reading The Sword of the Rightful King by Jane Yolen. I'm enjoying this book right now. I am reading it on Oyster, which is this new program that you can download for your iPhone, and essentially it's Netflix for books. It's actually really cool. I'm really enjoying it. I kind of wish that there was an option to download it on my Nook, although I don't actually know if my Nook is capable of downloading it. Any apps, actually. Check out Oyster, actually. I'll leave a link down below. It's $10 a month, and they have over 500,000 books. A lot of really popular ones, too. Those are the books that I am currently reading, and keep your eyes out for some more videos. I'm hoping to do a bookshelf tour sometime in the future, as well as maybe a review or two. Alright, talk to you later, guys. Bye!